we are proposing a cultural district in this sort of bounded by Zhang, Rosemont, 12th, and Davis for designation through the Texas Commission on the Arts. That square footage has a more dense literary presence than anywhere else in the state of Texas.
Welcome to the Hidden City Podcast. I'm Grant.
And I'm Doug, and we're here to share some of the incredible stories and people from Oak Cliff that you might not know.
We're going to sit down with some of the visionaries, craftsmen, and business owners who have shaped Oak Cliff into what it is today.
Oak Cliff is on the south bank of the Trinity River, a few miles south of downtown Dallas. While technically it was part of Dallas, it was its own city for a long time, and it still has that independent spirit.
We'll dive into the history and the spirit of this place, exploring the different challenges and successes that defined it.
This is The Hidden City, a podcast about the people and the stories that make Oak Cliff extraordinary. Welcome to this episode of the Hidden City Podcast. Today we have Aaron Glover with us, who is the executive director of the Writers Garret, which will be celebrating 30 years this year of his organization.
Congrats.
Thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming over. We're excited to chat.
Yeah.
So, Aaron, you have been in musical theater and academia kind of a lot. How did you get into the literary arts?
The best way I can say it is a thing presented itself to me. I was in a place at a time, and a way that I move through my life is I think about Elle Woods from Legally Blonde when she gets into Harvard and Warner Huntington shows up and he's like, "You got into Harvard?" And she's like, "Yeah, like it's hard." And I feel like every single step that I've taken, I've been like, how hard can this be? And then, you step into the thing and it's really hard, but yeah, it turns out it's hard. But we had moved to Dallas and I was in a writing group and someone suggested that I look at the Writers Garret to be a teaching artist because I had just moved from academia. It was the previous thing I'd been working in. And I got in as a teaching artist and it looked like the organization needed the change and I was young and wanted to be an executive director and said, sure, why not? And then we got into it.
Okay. All right. So you moved here, became the executive director in 2017. Is that right?
Yeah. So we moved to Oak Cliff in 2014.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
We closed on our house on Cinco de Mayo.
Nice.
That's
and
great.
yeah, it's always easy to remember that
Yeah.
day. But then, was here actually commuting. I taught at A&M
Oh,
at that
cool.
point. So I was
Nice.
commuting for a couple years and then here for a little period and then started at the Writers Garret, teaching artist, educational coordinator, and then co-executive director within 6 months. So
That's a lot.
Wow.
yeah, it went very fast.
Well, we've got at least one Aggie in the
Oh,
room
yeah,
over here.
for sure.
So.
You did down in College Station?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Man, that's great.
What made
Commuted.
you pick Oak Cliff?
So I have always lived in old houses kind of as I grew up, and I love the feel of neighborhoods like that. New Orleans is a heart city for me, and we were moving from Austin, and we were moving from a pretty basic kind of nondescript house, and I was like, let's find some place with character. So we were looking at Junius Heights and Oak Cliff.
Yep.
Nice.
And,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my husband's job required him to travel a lot for work.
Yeah.
And so it sort of came down to like, which one is closer to the airport?
Oh,
That's
So,
amazing.
and then we found the perfect house. I mean,
Yeah.
so it was like, we're leaning
awesome.
more Oak Cliff. And then we found this house and it was like, oh no, this is it.
Yeah, I mean, that was us growing up in older houses. We were like
In East
Grand.
Dallas, too, yeah.
East Dallas,
I
yeah.
think we're just used to it, and it's also the best.
Yeah.
They
The
have
character's so
character,
good.
and
Yeah.
it's
and the
It's the
neighborhood
best.
has character.
you might have to give up some space or some amenities for that, but it's worth
fun.
it.
It's
Yeah,
You don't need too much space.
the way that doors sometimes close and sometimes don't, as the foundation is moving around.
Foundation's
Beam, we love
always
her.
moving around a
Yeah.
little bit.
Foundation's always moving.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So it was kind of a quick rise to the executive director position for you.
Yeah.
Tell us about how that happened, and then also what life has been like on this side of that.
Yeah. So I ended up starting the executive director role as a co-executive director.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
the board looked at me, and at that point I was in my early 30s, and I had no management or arts experience other than teaching.
Yeah.
And they said, what are you doing? And I was like, I can do it. And they said, let's put somebody with you. So a guy named Michael Clay and I were co-executive directors for the first 2 years. And it really basically broke down into I was doing development and sort of visioning and forward facing, and he was really helping with operations. And I am so thankful that happened in hindsight, because I was not prepared for the operation side of things at all. Didn't understand how we're talking about budgeting and all the, the insurance stuff and all that kind of thing. So we started together, and the organization was at a real change moment.
Okay.
We had just celebrated our 20th plus 1 year anniversary at that point. And so we were looking at what the future was going to be, and it just needed a little bit of like a zhuzh. We had to go, hey, let's do this. So we got into the role, and then I started meeting with people throughout Dallas for like 6 months, like any writer or anybody who'd ever been involved with it. Being like, tell me about your experience with the Writers Garret. Tell me what you want from the Writers Garret.
Oh, cool.
And what became really clear from people was the connectiveness of it, that this is a place that people came to gather and be together. And I think that's the heart of our mission.
Yeah, no kidding. I love that you started with, hey, I'm just going to go meet with people and talk to them and see get a finger on the pulse.
Yeah.
What is going on in the creative space here?
The writing space, yeah. So Aaron, for those who don't know a little bit, what is the Writers Garret, and like how would you describe this to someone who's never heard of it?
Yeah. So for anyone who's wondering what a garret is,
I had to Google it.
No, there's
what is this word?
It's not a word that gets in. Yeah. We don't use it a lot these days. It's like a small, cheaply rented space at the top of a building.
Oh,
so if you think about like the 1800s in Paris and London, where you've got artists and writers who are like, doing their masterpieces in the little shack.
Yeah.
Exactly. Very, very sort of the bohemian La Boheme thing.
Cool.
And so the Writers Garret is kind of captures the spirit of that space of like, this is a place to come and create your masterpiece.
I love that.
But the secret, like sneaky part of it is that it's more about community and not about being alone. Because there's this myth that we have to do our genius work like all by ourselves.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But then afterwards we all go to the bar or we meet at the cafe beforehand and we're like, I got this idea. And
that's awesome.
That's kind of really what the spirit of the organization is. So our mission is to connect people through the imaginative power of language.
I love it.
So,
I'm so in on it too.
Talking to someone who studied rhetoric.
Well, I did. I'm a rhetoric major.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, we can get to the power of language here in a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think you hit on something that's pretty interesting, which is there's a communal aspect to creating, and I think one of my favorite groups is the old Inklings. Tolkien and Lewis and all those guys, Barfield. They were all just.
They were talking and drinking and smoking.
And they were friends, and they would, present something they're working on. And sometimes everyone would rip it up, and they'd be like, you're right, this was trash. And then other times, like Tolkien would need a little push. He's like, no, actually, I think you should keep writing The Lord of the Rings. And then all of a sudden, he births this amazing story. So I think there is really something to that encouragement, but also like real criticism that's helpful. You got to have it.
We have one of the like foundational programs of the organization that we've had for 30 years, because we're celebrating 30 years this year, it's called Stone Soup Peer Critique Groups. And they meet, like, there's 4 different groups, and some of them meet twice a month, but most meet just once. And some of them have been going for decades.
That's awesome.
And it's a free group that you get together with other writers, and you bring your work and they bring theirs, and they critique it. And it's a quiet thing, and it's not, it's not like super high profile, and it's not going to be big and flashy, but it's where work gets done. And like people have written novels that have gone on to be on the bestseller list.
See, that's so cool.
That's amazing.
In those groups. So yeah, that's like the vital bread and butter, heart and soul kind of thing. Is like just getting together and say,
get together.
Yeah, what do you think about this?
Did you call it Stone Soup?
Stone Soup.
Why is it called that?
Wasn't there an awesome book called Stone Soup back in the day?
Okay, is that
okay. No, that's exactly it. So it's we're all just bringing one thing. We're all bringing the thing that is like that we have right now, and we're all putting it into the pot. And we walk away satisfied as a group. So that sort of like bringing your own thing to add to the mix, and then everybody sort of gets more than they came with.
That's awesome.
That's pretty amazing. I like it.
This episode and every episode of the Hidden City podcast is brought to you by Waxspace. Waxspace is known as a co-working space in the neighborhood, but did you know that we also are open to rent to the public for private events? Every weekend we're hosting baby showers, wedding showers, birthday parties, and anniversary celebrations. If you're interested in hosting your private event at Waxspace, you can reach out to our events manager, Savannah, and that email address is hey@thewaxspace.com. That's HEY@thewaxspace.com to get more information and a custom quote for your event here at Waxspace.
Okay, so you've kind of talked about literature and language as a tool for empowerment. What are some ways that you see that happening either through the Writers Garret or in poetry? Would love to know more of that.
Yeah, I mean, we are in such a strange moment in history where language is quite literally being changed
Yeah.
and in some cases sort of restricted, and in some cases challenged. And I think this is a really important moment for us to acknowledge the power of language, that rhetoric can change people's minds, and it changes their hearts, and that the words that we use can divide us, but they can also bring us together. And especially as we're looking at an uncertain future in many different aspects, being able to unite with people and say, let's find common language is a really crucial thing that I think our communities have to do.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it seems like now, and for the last few years maybe, this like there's not a lot of consensus
It's
about
uncertain. There's like an age of uncertainty is what I've heard in some ways, where it's like, what is?
And do we like can we even start at the same definition of a word?
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, oh my goodness, we've got some work to do to be able to communicate with each other. So it does seem like it's in some ways a product of kind of the information age and sort of how we digest information and kind of how we get siloed into certain areas. And then I also just think with like AI, you want to talk about language, like ChatGPT is a large language model. And so this idea that like language is extremely important, but we don't often think about how it affects our day to day because, we don't consciously, think about it.
It's the water, right?
It's the water,
I mean, we use language every day. We use words every day. And whether that's via text or whether that's reading a book or whether that's speaking or listening to music or podcast, that's how we communicate with each other. That's how civilization at its very fundamental level happens.
Yeah.
So as you're thinking, as we are thinking about how to move forward, it's pretty obvious that the power is enormous because that's what people are trying to shape and shift and control, and that's how we know we've got something, right? And so that's why it's so important to keep trying to connect through language. You could not have set up a more perfect plug for our Common Language project.
Oh, perfect.
Tell us about it.
Let's hear it.
So this is an annual poetry competition that we have, and it started in 2018. This was my first, day one. I said we want to pay everybody a little bit more, and we need to have... I want to do this thing because I was a part of the poetry community, and it was sort of fractured and siloed, and I said, how can we get everybody together in a room and speaking the same language?
Yeah.
And I was reading Adrian Rich's The Dream of a Common Language at that point, and there's a line in it that says, no one sleeps in the same room without the dream of a common language. And I was like, maybe we call it the Common Language Project.
There you go.
So it's an annual poetry competition. We just had our 8th, I think.
Cool.
We take 30 words. We put 30 words and a theme on our website.
Oh, cool.
And in the month of March, anyone can submit a poem that's 30 lines or less. You don't have to have ever submitted or written anything before. And then we've got 3 community judges who pick 30 of those poems, and then we publish them in an anthology. And it is such a magical, cool experience to see all of these different perspectives coming together and using the same words.
That's amazing. I love
Yeah.
that. What a cool idea.
Yeah,
They can only use those 30 words, or can they have to use all 30
They have
words?
to use all 30.
Okay.
They definitely can use other words
I got
as well.
you. Oh,
but
that's neat.
Yeah, it's a super cool
One
project.
of our friends gave a talk, Tammy Coker, and it was creativity and how you, by limiting kind of like your,
Constraint.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that is cool seeing that kind of same concept in this, where it's like, here's your words, here's like this constraint, and let's see how that creativity kind of happens within that constraint. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
I mean,
That's
you
awesome. Yeah.
think about a word like mother,
Yeah.
and how that word means something very
Yeah.
specific to me, but it might mean something very specific to you. It's definitely going to mean very specific to someone who has actually had a child.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
yeah,
It feels different, or it is different for so many different people. Yeah.
exactly. And to put 30 poems together that are all they're all using mother in some very different way, and saying, wow, this language, if we've agreed upon this, what are the strands we can draw together and sort of braid into, community or a common thing.
Fascinating.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And so do you publish that anthology? or-
Yeah, we
Okay.
do. They're
Nice.
available through the Writers Garret.
All right.
Get in
Nice.
touch.
Very
Aaron
cool.
at writersgarret.org.
Oh,
There it is.
great.
That's
We need
my
to-
email address.
We need to get one at Waxbase.
That'd be fun, yeah.
Yes.
We'll do that.
Tell us more about some of the other things that programming wise that the Writers Garret does.
Yeah. So during the fall and spring, we offer an event series that is mostly are free or donation based.
Okay.
So there are workshops on a variety of topics. There are talks on specific things. We occasionally have readings or sort of author events. We have a free monthly workshop series called the Lyceum series.
Cool.
I didn't realize this was going to be vocab day, but
Hey.
That was great.
the
Love it.
Lyceum was where they used
Yep.
to, like in ancient Greece, they used to come together and like exchange ideas. And
You know about this?
Oh, it's the
Oh, I know.
Lyceum.
Okay,
dude.
okay.
Come on.
Obviously,
Okay,
the
so it's
Lyceum.
vocab day for Doug. all right. Sorry, didn't even get a rhetoric degree. yeah.
I mean, let's do it. But that's every third Saturday of the month from 10 a.m. to noon, and it's totally free. And
Nice.
it's
How
on
cool
like
is that?
the next one we've got is this amazing local poet named Lisa Huffaker, who's
Okay.
going to be doing found text and poetry around that. We've had one like on developing characters for graphic novels. We've had one on how to get Shakespeare into your story. We've had one on we've got one coming up later this fall on photography and poetry, how they kind of relate to each other.
Oh, cool.
So super
You would
cool.
love that.
Yeah, that's it. Some photography.
Yeah.
Okay, man, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then we do a lot. We kind of serve three different groups: youth and family, kids,
Cool.
like youth programming. We partner with health and human service organizations to use writing as a tool for healing,
Wow.
for reflection, and sort of like growing, using it to make yourself to heal, literally.
Yeah. That's really amazing. So is the Writers Garret, is it kind of located in Oak Cliff, or is it kind of a citywide thing? I know there's also aspects of the Writers Garret that go to like serve certain parts, like we'd love to know more of that. In the Southwest, I think, and also southern parts of Dallas, you're doing programs specifically for like areas that aren't maybe represented always in that. So
Yeah. So our headquarters are here in Oak Cliff.
Awesome. That's great.
And we moved here, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, and it was really important to me to be in a neighborhood where people could go and have a coffee beforehand or a drink after.
Love that.
Or switch those maybe if you need to.
Yeah.
But, it was important to be in a neighborhood. And I live in Oak Cliff. I think Oak Cliff is a unique geographic band of the city. It lies in a unique geographic band that people who are north of the river feel comfortable to come here, but people from the south, who are south of the river feel comfortable in the space too. So kind of we can all come and play together. And so we are here. That's our programs mostly happen kind of here. And because I'm Oak Cliff, I want to big up Oak Cliff.
Yeah.
Our big festival happens here, the Dallas is Literary Festival, but we do go into other neighborhoods to do work with folks who have been systemically, disadvantaged. We are really intentional about trying to partner with organizations that serve in those communities. In 2021, we specifically added to our sort of who we serve with Right to Heal specifically that places that were systemically disadvantaged by the racist redlining of Dallas in their history, because we want to make sure that people know about that, right? If we don't say it out loud, it just sort of exists or it goes away. But if we say it, if we acknowledge that that is something that has happened, that's the way we can start addressing it. And so we can start being intentional about going into those communities and saying, let's use writing. How can we use language to grow the community?
Why is language and literature, in your opinion, just such a good tool for that process of sort of building empathy and healing? To give me your pitch on.
Oh yeah, I mean, you said the word, right?
Yeah.
Empathy. Language builds empathy.
Yeah.
Language allows you to. It kind of goes back to the common language thing, but. If I'm using the same word, especially in literature, if I can imagine myself in someone else's shoes, it builds that muscle to be able to say, oh, let me experience things a little bit differently, and what might it be like if that is the experience that I'm having?
Right.
Suddenly, I have to consider something different. And, language has its boundaries, right? There are things that language cannot do, but there is such an enormous amount that it can do. And I think empathy is the thing that will save us. Like, if I'm going like full tilt, right? I think empathy is what is going to save us, and is the only thing that can, because if we can't imagine ourselves in someone else's experience, how could we make decisions that want to benefit them as well as ourselves?
It's sort of the key to breaking down the us versus them mentality. And that's the beauty of a good book or novel. It's like you can get lost in some other person that is way different than you.
Totally.
But at the core really isn't. And so you kind of can build a new perspective. It's like travel too. I feel like travel is this way. It like puts you in a place where you're like, oh, I now have to be someone I'm
Dallas,
not really
Texas. Sort
of.
Yeah, I'm not the dominant language culture here.
Yeah.
Whoa, how do I need to check how I move through this space now?
Right.
I think that's a huge crucial thing that we want to use language to do.
Yeah. Tell me about the Dallas literature scene. What's it like? Because even in Oak Cliff, I feel like we have a rich.
Another independent bookstore is coming up too, and
that's right.
We've got a cluster of indie bookstores, which is awesome. But
I have not done the official research on this, but the unofficial research that I have done on this is that the North Oak Cliff area that is, we are proposing a cultural district in this sort of bounded by Zhang, Rosemont, 12th, and Davis for designation through the Texas Commission on the Arts. That square footage has a more dense literary presence than anywhere else in the state of Texas.
Whoa.
Because we have
official
5 bookstores. Yeah, no, exactly. But seriously, we have 5 bookstores. We've got 3 literary organizations that are headquartered there. We've got, I think, 3 other venues that regularly do literary stuff. We have a ton of writers, and there's just so much activity happening here. I mean, almost every night of the week, certainly at least twice a week, every week, there is something literary happening in Oak Cliff.
Man, that is it's surprising, but it's also not surprising because we've gotten to know Javi and Claudia and so many people. It's like there is so much passion for literature, and it is all right in that like 1 square mile basically.
Yep. And that is part of the DNA of Oak Cliff too.
Yeah.
Like when I hear some of that, I'm like, oh, of course it's in Oak Cliff, because you've had these people that are just attracted to this area forever. Yeah.
Why does that happen? Yeah, you touch on that more because it is kind of the DNA of Oak Cliff, but it's so weird too that it's like it's all concentrated in one area. Do you think?
I mean, I think part of that is, friends like friends, right?
Yeah,
and
that's true.
You see a cool thing, and you're like, oh man, I want to be a part of that.
True.
Let me do that over there.
I don't want to be all the way out in Richardson.
Yeah.
Like,
Which no shade on Richardson.
No,
Great job.
a little bit, a little shade. Yeah, I'm kidding.
We love Richardson.
No, and I mean, and that's, I think actually that's a really important thing too, is that there's this resurgence of bookstores right now.
Yeah.
And I think in a broader sense, Dallas, the DFW Metroplex is having a moment in terms of literary activity.
Yeah.
There are things that are happening that are getting national attention. There is this literary festival called Dallas is Lit that just celebrated third. We just had our third one, and we had the former U.S. Poet Laureate Joy Harjo here.
Nice.
amazing.
So
it's amazing.
like, there's stuff happening here.
Yeah.
And I think we're like just on the edge of getting the recognition. Like, we have the critical mass, and now it just needs to go like.
Yeah, you have this community that's been building and building. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you hinted at it. Tell us, Dallas is Lit Festival. What is it about?
So
you created it, or
yes, we did. It was another one of my it's hard moments where I was like, maybe we should do a festival.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it should be like a night and a day, and then that turned into 3 days.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah,
and then we did the first one, and then I was like, great, let's make it bigger. Let's do 7. 7 days is
7
too many.
days.
7 days is too many.
It's a lot for a festival.
For anyone who's thinking about doing a festival, 7 days is too many days.
Hey, you tried it though.
I did try
The
it.
only way to find out sometimes.
I am a very hard-headed learner, and I have
funny.
to do it, and
That's hilarious.
almost die doing it. But,
Okay, 3 days though. That's a sweet spot.
4 days is what
4 days.
is what we
Okay.
did. It is a festival that's designed to make the literary arts accessible to more people. When some people think about what a literary festival is going to be, they imagine book signings, a keynote speech, author events, and those are so crucial to the literary conversation.
Yeah.
And I write. I have a ton of friends who write. Publishing a book is an enormous task and deserves all of the praise. But there are so many other ways that people are engaging with literary activities, and they don't think that they are. So if you're a parent and you don't read books or magazines, but you take your kid to a story time, you are a part of the literary conversation.
Yeah.
You should have weigh-in on what's happening in that, that context. If you are young person and you again are not a person who's like, what's on the New York Times bestseller list, but you want to go out on a Friday night and have like poetry and like snaps and like get a cute little drink and stuff, like that's literary activity. So I think it's really important to uplift those things also, because that's how we get more people acknowledging literary as something that they are participating in, which helps all of us go like, Dallas has a really active literary scene. And that's how we get people to start thinking about the city as a place of literary activity. And that's how we grow the I don't know what the right word is, but like the prestige of it, or the pride in it. Right? We have a ton of
we're saying it's important. You have people like Greg or Javi and Claudia, all of them are like, they're getting behind it. They're like, hey, this is important. We believe in this. And this festival is one of those moments where it's like, here's a big kind of like, we believe in the importance of this.
And it's not ivory tower stuff or highbrow. It's down in the dirt. It's relevant, and I think that's the maybe the stigma you have to fight a little bit with a festival.
And I think what I want to build, the festival that we hope we build, and I think this year was the first year where I think we really kind of got a lot of the boxes checked. Was wanting something that has a little bit of something for everybody. We offered a festival pass this year, and I thought, who is going to buy this? And we had a few people do it.
Awesome.
But as I was going through like all of the things that they were going to do, I was like, none of these things are the same. If you want like bona fides, we have Joy Harjo coming to the Texas Theater. You want a slam show? We've got that. You like rom-coms? Like total
got
fluff.
it.
We have a brunch.
You
want to come in?
We have a brunch. That's great.
Yes, tacos, mimosas, and rom-coms.
Look,
that was a secret. Like that's the one that I really feel like next year I really hope more people come to, because it's so funny.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Oh, that's great.
But
you had so much.
And it's so different. Like, oh, you want, like, you're more of a music person. Well, come hear Langston Hughes over an incredible jazz concert. You want to meet authors. We have a book and author fair, that had 36 authors and like 16 different organizations. There's so many ways to get involved in that festival. And that's why I think it's so important to say, come do different stuff.
So this year's festival, give me some of the highlights from the festival. What was some of your favorite parts?
So one of the first thing, the thing that we open the festival with is a program called Hear Me, See Me. And we've done it all 3 years, and it's been different every year. But we take local poets who have written their own material, and then I sort of like arrange it and stage it, and and they then perform their work. And because my background is theater, so I love that sort of interdisciplinary. What is this theater? Is it poetry? What are we doing? But it's such an incredibly emotional evening to watch these poets, because we have the first year, like we had someone who communicated in ASL. We had folks who spoke Spanish. We had, the second year we had some folks who had lived through like a physical, like impairment, who had survived a stroke. And then we had a woman, Linda Jones, shout out to Linda Jones, who is an elder with a capital E, who was like blessing us with her poems. Like it was so incredible. And I've seen people go into it not sure that they're going to be able to perform, and then like grow some incredible sense of self and strength, and speak words about self-love. And see them feel it on stage. Just like, it's giving me goosebumps thinking about it. Like that is such a powerful evening.
That's a huge moment.
Yeah.
I mean, we know this from the TX studio. We used to run a photo studio, and we would have an end of the year gallery, and it was sometimes people's first time to like get their artwork up that they've spent so much time on it, and there's this magic moment for sure when you're starting to put stuff out in the world. And I can only imagine in this like moment too is like they're getting feedback, they're seeing people, like audience reaction kind of stuff too. And
it's probably extremely cathartic and just raw for those people.
Yeah. And especially when the poems are about being seen, right? I mean, that's when we ask for folks to submit stuff, it's about like being present and being seen. And so to do that on a stage with a big light on you and maybe some music in the background and an audience full of people, like it's quite a experience.
Yeah, you're being seen.
Yeah. In a very
Spotlight's
serious
on
way.
you. Yeah.
But that's an amazing event. And then I got to shout out the Common Language Project reading is what we close the festival with.
Cool. It sounds so cool. I can't wait to explore that.
It's another moment that's like, it's at the Turner House, and so beautiful ballroom, and
it's a great
get
place.
An incredible spread by Grazing Dallas, who are also here in the neighborhood. Patrick and Yolanda, they are awesome, and it's just a beautiful event. And then that ballroom just gets packed with people. Like sometimes a little warm, actually. Anybody who was there this year is probably like, we could use some more air conditioning if possible. But
that's that charm, the older home.
Totally. Well, until there's 80 people in a room and we're all like, "Ooh, this poetry, can it move a little faster?" But it's magical to see people, like families, come out to to support somebody who maybe they've been doing this and they didn't tell anybody about it.
Right.
And suddenly here they are reading in this room, and it's like extended family there. Or like this year we had a woman who wasn't there at the beginning, and I asked if she was in the room, and she didn't respond. And then kind of halfway through, her daughter brought her up to me and was like, she's here. She's just, she's like feeling nervous about this. Yeah. And I was like, hey, if you want to read, you can. If you don't, you don't. And she said, I'm going to, because my daughter brought me and she said I should. And it was just like,
cool.
Like I'm getting them, it's like, man, yes. What an incredible connective moment there.
Oh, that's crazy.
It's just a really beautiful community event.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
You're leading this organization, but then you yourself are also writing. Tell us about what is, first off, a chapbook, and then also one of your works, Biologic.
Yeah. So I do less writing now because job.
You're leading.
But I write poetry, I write poetry and other things, but poetry was kind of the main thrust of it.
Cool.
And in 2017, I had a chapbook called Biologic. A chapbook is sort of like a not full collection, sort of like a mini.
So like a chapter?
Yeah.
Is that the name of it?
I mean, I think the way technically it breaks down is chapbooks are usually like 48 pages or less. Okay. And then beyond that, you would maybe call it a full length collection of poetry. And so, I was writing and getting critiques for like a year, and I was finally at the house of this friend, this novelist, and who also wrote poetry sometimes, and we write together. And she was like, Aaron, you come here, you write. Some of these are not even bad. Just write the frickin' chapbook. And I was like, oh. But it was a kind of a like, hey, buddy, get yourself together.
Hey, you're doing
moment.
it. You need to
Yes, like
go ahead
do
and
it. Exactly.
Put it out in the world a little bit.
So then, of course, I said, I'm going to write the biggest chapbook that ever existed. So I had 115 poems, which is so too many. And that got narrowed down to, I think I ended up with like 21 or 22.
Wow.
You got her up right to that 48 pages.
Yeah, no, I blew past it. 'Cause I was gonna write the best chapbook, the longest chapbook anybody'd ever had. And that was foolish. But yeah, so that came out, and it's interesting to look back on that time capsule, really, because that's me writing it 2017 in 2017, and here we are, 8 years later, and my writing has evolved a lot. And there are a few poems in there where I'm like, yeah, you had something here, and then there are a couple like, well, I'm glad I got that little push in that moment because otherwise I wouldn't have kept writing.
Right.
Like there's something about being recognized.
Yeah.
So
Hey, Doug. So this is an ad, but we are actually sitting in the podcast studio at Waxspace that is available for people to use.
We want people to know. You can get a podcast membership at Waxspace. It's $180 a month. It comes with studio time. Or you could also just rent studio time, $60 an hour. And then we also have, Grant, we're putting a little special together. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we've got a 15% off special exclusive to the Hidden City podcast. So if you use the code Hidden City 15, Hidden City 15, we will get you 15% off. And it's great. Yeah. It's turnkey. You walk in, all the equipment is there for you to use. It is super easy to get up and going. So if you're a little intimidated, you don't need to be. It's there, it's ready, and it's there for you to enjoy. So if you go to the waxspace.com/podcast studio, you can find out more.
Start your own podcast. Start recording in here. We built this for people to come in and do this. So we're excited. And that's a part of creating. Like, you look back at certain times. I mean, I'll do that with photography where you're like, man, I put that out in the world. But then there's things that you're proud of for sure. Yeah. So I can relate to that. I think that's cool that you took that leap and you made it. That's pretty. It was. Awesome.
I mean, and it's like when you get on the other side of it, then it's like, oh, I've joined a group that I didn't know I was a part of.
Yeah.
And so you understand. So like now, when I have friends who are saying, my novel's coming out or my book's coming out, I'm like, I know how much work that was.
Yeah.
So all the praise, all the flowers, like,
no kidding.
That is a monumental task.
Yeah. Are you working on anything right now? Do you mind if we ask?
I mean, I'm writing little pieces. There's a project that I started last year that I got maybe a third of the way through, and then something wiped out all of the files on my computer.
Oh no! Like you just lost the files.
Quite literally.
Oh no!
And so I'm trying really hard at this point to be like, is this worth going back and like recreating, or is this
tough?
Or taking the impetus of it and going forward from there, writing from now, as opposed to trying to imagine being then and writing back through it and capture what I had written. But actually, the writing project that I'm most excited about right now is a writer's Garret situation.
Good.
We have a new project started this year, conceived by Joe Malazzo and Lisa Huffaker, two incredible local writers, and it's called Poetry in Place, and it is intended to be like a decade-long project that's going to document the Trinity River through poetry, written by community members. And I thought it sounded like a cool idea when they first mentioned it to us, and we were finally able to get funding for it. And I've been on the first 3 of these, and that has become such a really valuable opportunity for me to spend some time thinking about the river and thinking about Dallas and why we're here and how that thing connects us all. And I've been pretty pleased with what I've kind of generated out of that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, the river is such a symbol too.
Yeah.
And especially it connects us all, but it also does divide our city in a real way. I mean, Oak Cliff in particular is always going to talk about this or that side of the Trinity.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so there's some great material there to work with.
It's got so much history too. Which is
it's literally why we're here. Yeah.
I know. yeah, and the history of it is wild. We'll have to tell you about this later, but like the whole JFK moving the river out to like the port of Dallas, there's like some crazy, it's from founding to like moments in the 60s to corridors going over it. It's who did we had Richard Doherty on here, and he did some photography of people down the river too, and it's like people are turtle fishing down there. It's like it's got life, and you're kind of drawn to it in a way. We even this is like a side, but with my boys when we're driving over it, we tend to play Trinity River by Charlie Crockett, and it's just like there's music, there's like lore, there's it feels real, like there's something here in Dallas.
I think there's definitely for a lot of us, especially if you live in Oak Cliff, the river is a real thing.
Sure.
I think there are places, and Joe has said this better when we've talked in our sort of gatherings, but like there are people for whom the river is something that is out of sight, out of mind, right?
Sure.
And previous generations did that intentionally, so that there are people who don't have to think about the river. And what we're interested in, and why this project feels so resonant to me, is that as time moves on and the climate does what the climate does, we are going to be confronted with this, with the water crisis, with how do we deal with river and extreme weather. And I think getting everyday people, like this project is not, I mean, poets are welcome, but the goal is to get community members to come out, people who don't conceive of themselves as writers, but just people who are interested to come and spend some time with the river and the surrounding banks and everything, and just like sit with that and record it, so that we can see, hopefully over 10 years, how that relationship changes, how people, what people want, what threads of story emerge from that. And I got a question at one of the events that was saying, do you plan to use this for advocacy at some point? And I had never thought about that, but then I'm like, wow, imagine we get 4 years down the road and there's someone who's proposing something about what to do with the river or change it, and being able to point to this and saying, here are 12 months times 4 years worth of people who have come and said something about the river. Can this be a part of the conversation too?
That's great.
Definitely feels like a moment, because you said it's a 10-year long project. I feel like you have, is it Halperin Park that's going to be right there? You have, I think we read about this German spa company that's putting in, it's like an $800 million spa on the Trinity River on the city side. Wild, like Therm Group. So you have all of this. You got the Longhorn Ballrooms, you have all this stuff that's happening and changing, but it still feels wild. I think a 10-year look from that kind of perspective is going to be fascinating.
Especially this next 10 years, because I feel like like you were saying, there's a lot going on.
A lot.
And it does seem like Dallas is continuing to grow pretty rapidly. And what is our relationship with the river 10 years from now? That'll be a really interesting thing to look back on.
Harold Simmons Park is coming, and conservation is definitely something. Simmons, right. But I think Halperin is maybe.
Halperin's maybe the deck park.
Harold Simmons. 2 H's. It's messing me up.
But I think that's an important thing to kind of be thinking about is how do we grow smart, right? As we continue to increase density along the corridor of the river, how do we do that in a way that preserves what we have? Somebody brought up at the last meeting, they were like, remember when they were going to pave it over and make it into a toll road?
Literally.
They wanted to do that.
It was like a serious thing.
I couldn't remember. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, what? Like, thank goodness they didn't. And also,
well, when it floods,
who was it? Who would have? Like, have you seen 59 in Houston? It just becomes a lake, So it's just really interesting to see how what people want to do with the river, what use they think they can get out of it. Or like what do we need to do to preserve it as it is? So there's a lot of fodder there. So.
not to make this whole episode about the Trinity River, but I mean, the other side, that's where Oak Cliff goes and gets its liquor. It's like
Riverfront.
It's on Riverfront Liquor. You all cross that and you can get there, but then you have like all this music too that was down by that area. You have the Bottoms neighborhood.
Yeah.
History there of like even Babe Ruth, like the ballpark that was there.
Oh, yeah.
Is like right off the Trinity Banks.
And several like Freedmantown communities along the river.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's just so much. This is one of the exciting things. So each of the meetings meets with a different guest contributor who brings a different expertise. So like we've had a master naturalist, we had Jody Voice Yellowfish who came and talked about an indigenous perspective. We had some folks from Green Space this most recent time. And just like there's so many ways to approach it. You know, there's the ecological thing.
Yeah.
There's the civil engineering of the levees thing.
Yeah.
There's the environmental justice. There's geology. Like there's so many ways you can approach the idea of the river. And we're really excited to explore that.
It's cool.
Teased out over a long time.
I love it. It reminds me of our conversation too with David Marquis. And sort of his history over here in Oak Cliff.
Oak Cliff Nature Preserve.
Yeah.
Like how this is. I mean, it's bizarre. You have this massive artery going through Dallas, and as it's getting developed, like what is the future of it? It's definitely a topic.
Well, we'll be tuned in.
Yeah.
So keep up the great work.
I'm happy to come back and update you at some point.
That'd be
That's
awesome.
great.
We'd love that. As we close, tell us where people can learn more about the Writers Garret programming that you have going on. Maybe next year's Dallas is Lit Festival. Any plans for that?
Yeah. So the best place to go to get information is writersgarret.org.
Great.
We are also on the socials at Writers Garret with one T at the end. And we are planning to do Dallas is Lit for sure next year.
Awesome.
It will probably be the weekend after Mother's Day next May. Usually May is kind of when we've done it. The first year we did it with Mother's Day weekend, and I got a lot of feedback, both positive and negative. But it was definitely like, ooh, maybe we want to avoid that to make space for it.
Hey, you learned.
But,
That's great.
Yeah, but we have a few things coming up over the summer. Lyceum Series meets every Saturday from 10 to noon, and it's free, but an RSVP is required, which you can find at writersgarret.org. Poetry in Place is another one. The date moves around, but it's usually a Saturday morning during the month. That's also free. We would love for people to come out and be a part of that. If you're even remotely interested, check it out.
Yeah,
it's
show
so
up.
cool. It's so interesting.
Where did that meet? The Lyceum?
So it changes. That's the other thing is like,
Okay.
so we've met at Santa Fe Trestle Trail. We met at California Crossing Park this most recent time. We met at Ronkirk Bridge. We're probably going to meet down near Bonton.
Okay.
At
Awesome.
sometime.
Wax Space at one of these times.
Come on.
Yeah. Hey, let's do it. One other thing I got to plug
Please,
is
plug away.
we have on June 25th, we are partnering with Badge of Pride, which is a local queer history organization, to do a author conversation with a guy named Tom Fitzgerald and Lorenzo Marquez. And they wrote a book called Legendary Children that explores LGBTQ history in the 20th century through the lens of RuPaul's Drag Race. So each of the elements of Drag Race sort of tying to a iconic thing in sort of the LGBTQ lexicon or sort of lived experience, and how those sort of inform the choices that happen on the show.
Wow.
And I am going to be I'm going to be the one in conversation with that, so I'm super excited about it. But it's
When's
happening
that
at the Bishop Arts Theater Center on June 25th.
Okay,
So,
awesome. And then also I have to shout out this amazing mug and pint glass.
Check
Where
out
do they
mine.
get these? Is this
Dallas is
website?
lit.
These are special gifts.
No, those are special guests for right now.
Oh, okay.
We are hoping to do some website upgrading over the summer, and there may be a commerce
Go to the website.
sort of
Go to the
part
website.
about that. But the website is the best place to be connected. And
Cool.
once we got your email, we'll keep you updated about everything.
Cool.
Thanks for the awesome gifts, and thanks for coming over.
Yeah,
It's great
thank
to
you
see
so much for having me.
Yeah,
This was
awesome.
amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to this episode of The Hidden City. We hope you discovered something about Oak Cliff that you didn't know. If you enjoyed the show, I hope you subscribe to it on YouTube and then follow us on any of the podcasting platforms. Also, if you enjoyed it, please share with a friend. And thanks so much for tuning in.